Welcome to Van Life with Steve, and thank you for joining me for a visit to Mount Rainier National Park located in Washington State. So as we look at a relief map of the park, we'll go ahead and get right into the Mount Rainier summaries. Established as a national park in 1899 by President McKinley. Sees 1.6 million visitors, so it's not an overly crowded park. There are 5 regions. Those are Longmire, Paradise, Onapikosh, Sunrise, and Carbon River. In this episode, we are going to visit Paradise, and in part 2, we will visit Sunrise. So in addition to the incredible Mount Rainier, the park also features lakes, forests, meadows, spectacular mountain views, and it has some really amazing waterfalls as well. So there's much more than just the mountain. As for wildlife, you are going to have pretty much your usual national park staples, black bears, elk, but this park also has mountain goats and marmots. And in this episode, we'll see marmots, squirrels, and chipmunks. For the weather, basically what you need to know is Mount Rainier receives an incredible amount of snowfall during the winter, and so most of the park is not going to be accessible by road. I believe snow chains are required between like November and May, but during the summertime, you have some pretty moderate temperatures and it's pretty nice. As for cell service, this is one of the parks that really surprised me. At the Paradise Visitor Center, you actually get incredible cell service. So with all that said, we're going to head into the park. Please be sure to stick around to the end of the video where I'm going to give you my overall recommendation for the park, and I'll share a few tips to hopefully help you if you ever visit the park. So yeah, it was kind of a different kind of thing driving up to a 14,000 foot tall stratovolcano in the morning, but that was an amazing sunset. So first up, we're going to stop at the incredible Christine Falls. It's a waterfall that looks like it's coming out of a fairy tale. It's absolutely incredible, and it's one of the first things you see as you head up to Paradise. So moving along from the waterfall, we're going to continue forward and we're going to check out another waterfall. This is known as Narada Falls, and this is quite a bit different than the previous one, but definitely a very cool waterfall as well. Moving on from Narada Falls, we're gonna head on up to the Paradise Visitor Center and get going straight away on the Skyline Trail, which will offer you some just absolutely incredible views of Mount Rainier. Now, as you get started on this trail, this is rated as a strenuous hike. The first mile or so is really steep, and so you really need to be prepared for that. But here is a look at the southeastern face of Mount Rainier, and the glacier you're looking at there is known as the Nisqually Glacier. Hopefully I pronounced that right. So Mount Rainier is a bit of a special mountain. At 14,417 feet, Mount Rainier is the 5th highest mountain in terms of elevation above sea level, behind Mount Whitney, Elbert Massive, and Mount Harvard. However, in terms of topographic prominence, which is how much of the mountain pokes out above the ground, essentially, Mount Rainier is by far the most prominent mountain in the contiguous United States. For example, Mount Whitney, which is the highest mountain, has a prominence of a little over 10,000 feet, whereas Mount Rainier's prominence is over 13,000 feet. So this is by far the largest mountain you can look at in the contiguous United States. As here we'll take a look at some of the other mountains from along the trail. Here's a quick look at some squirrels and this marmot, who was very photogenic. And I believe this is my first time ever seeing a marmot, and marmots are the heaviest members of the squirrel family. If you're enjoying this content, I'd appreciate it so much if you please give me a like, and please consider subscribing if you want to see more videos. I've been to 45 national parks so far, and I have videos on all of them in addition to a bunch of cities and a bunch of other places. So I have a bunch of great content coming up for you. Thanks so much, and let's continue with the video. If anybody knows what this bird is, please let me know in the comments below. Getting back to Mount Rainier, it is an extremely large mountain, the largest you can see in the contiguous United States. In addition, as you can see, there's a lot of snow and ice on there. It has the most glaciers of any mountain in the contiguous United States as well, and I believe there are more named glaciers on Mount Rainier than there are in all of Glacier National Park. And finally, Mount Rainier is of course a stratovolcano, and it's on the decade volcano list. It's thought as one of the most deadly volcanoes in the world. One of the main reasons for that is all of the ice that you see up there. Essentially, if Mount Rainier were to erupt, the steam and magma and all that stuff would of course melt the ice, and that would create what is known as lahars, which are mud flows that would run down the mountain, and I believe 150,000 people live in the danger zone for those lahars and just create this massive mudslide, and that's what makes Mount Rainier so dangerous. Also, Mount Rainier, getting back to the size, it's approximately twice the size of Mount St. Helens before Mount St. Helens erupted, so you can just kind of imagine kind of the devastation that would happen should Mount Rainier ever erupt. It's also bigger than the entire cathedral group at Grand Teton National Park. So this is a really, really big mountain. It's more prominent than K2, which is the second highest mountain in the world. So this is a really, really big mountain, really incredible thing to see. Here we'll take in some more views from the Skyline Trail. This is Panorama Point, and you couldn't really see because of the clouds, but in the distance there, behind all those clouds, there's Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, and Mount Hood, and we may be seeing some of those in a future episode. But yeah, it's just a really incredible view, and this rivals anything in Rocky Mountain National Park or, you know, any other park I've seen. Just amazing mountain views. Here's our friend the marmot again, really friendly guy. And finally, at the end of the Skyline Trail, we'll end up at Myrtle Falls, which is an incredibly picturesque area of the park. Similar to Christine Falls, when you're there, you kind of just think you're in a Disney movie or something. It's really incredible. So as we get to the end of part one of the video, I'll go ahead and give you my overall recommendation to the park. Mount Rainier is an absolutely incredible park. Of the 45 parks I've been to so far, I would rate this as my third favorite. So it's definitely a destination park, and I recommend it without reservation whatsoever. A few tips for if you visit the park. Number one, you may have noticed some of the clouds have built up on the mountain as we've gotten later in the day. So you definitely want to do any of your mountain photography. Make sure you do that in the morning. So Myrtle Falls, Reflection Lakes, any of the other lakes or anything like that, make sure you do that in the morning. When it comes to boondocking in the park, the mountain is surrounded by national forest. Essentially, it was created out of the national forest, and any of the roads leading up to the mountain that are within the national forest, you can boondock out there for free. Just make sure you're not in a landslide area or anything like that. And in addition to that, at the Paradise Visitor Center, if maybe you ask the rangers if maybe they know of a spot you could boondock out, maybe those guys will help you out. That's all I really want to say on that. In the distance, those are people on the mountain. So, and my final tip, it's also kind of a photography thing. You want to go ahead and if you go to Paradise, you want to do Myrtle Falls first thing. You want to take pictures there before the clouds build up, but you also want to beat the crowds because that's a very popular area of the park. I would actually recommend you do the opposite of what I did and you start the Skyline Trail because it's a loop. You can go in any direction. I would actually start it at Myrtle Falls, do my photography, and then go on the Skyline Trail counterclockwise. That's going to do it for part 1 at Mount Rainier. Next week, we're going to visit Sunrise for some more incredible views. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks and take care. Bye.